Yep.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I'm here with my boy Max. What's up, Max? How's it going today?
What's going on, everyone? I'm doing great. It's Friday.
Oh yeah,
Oh, you
what
know
was the
what?
balloons? That
I
was
just
weird.
thought about that. That was the Apple
Oh
balloons. Hold
okay.
on, I'm gonna do it again. Yeah. I forgot if you do like certain things,
Oh
then
yeah,
I think
I didn't know
it
that.
does the animate. It does the animation or whatever. Well, I guess I
That's
can't do it
weird.
again.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That threw me off. Well, that's a
Yeah.
crazy way to start the stream. Balloons flying. All right.
Yeah. I had to hold on for a minute to do this. Let's see if that works. Oh, never mind. I guess it's a one-time thing. Okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know it did that. That's cool. Anyway, what's up? How's it going? Just gonna talk today about your experience with the X95K. I don't know if anybody can see the screen right here. We kind of have some X95K and Bravia 8 footage up. I said your experience with the X95K, but I meant your experience with the Bravia 9. Um, I'm
Oh
already just
yeah.
messing everything up. All right, so
No, it's okay. It's all
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's just a stream.
Yeah, it's just a stream. So we're gonna talk about a couple of things today. We're gonna go through a couple of deals. We're gonna help you kind of find the right TV for you. We're gonna take questions from the audience and yeah, just kind of gauge what you guys want to talk about, really. And I kind of have a topic in mind of starting with this is the Bravia 9 overhyped? Did it live up to like all the expectations? Are we maybe talking too much about it? Um, and do people like hold it too high of a standard? I have my thoughts on that. I'll share with you guys, like my thoughts on that. And the answer might surprise you a little bit, it might not. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I just think
Yeah.
that the Bravia 9, it's one of those TVs that's going to be a polarizing topic for a little bit. But you finally got a chance to get it in your possession, right? And get to check it out
Yeah.
with your X95K, which is 85 inch. This is a 75 inch that you're checking out, the
Yeah.
Bravia 9.
Yeah, it's
So,
a 75-inch. So I know you know almost so I'm on my camera on my laptop, so you can't really see specifically. I'm trying to hold it up,
yeah.
but you can see both TVs behind the couch. I know it's kind of hard to see from the stream.
Yeah, I
But
see
yeah,
that.
I so the reason why and that's I know people are going to ask me this question. Why didn't I get an 85-inch Bravia 9? I could tell you this just to be frank, that TV is heavy. And there's no way that I could possibly do that by myself. And then the second thing that I think people don't realize too is that my basement is a weird layout. It's shaped as a L, and people start to notice it in my videos. And
Hmm.
so how I have my couches arranged and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to get everything within my shot of my camera. So if I had two 85-inch TVs, it's really, really challenging to record that. So you're going to see something that's going to be cut off between one of the other TVs. And so that was like the other reason why I went with the 75-inch
Yeah.
Bravia 9, just because of that. Because if everyone looked at my videos before, the X95K is on the wall, and so it's like it's impossible for me to like move it off the wall, move it somewhere else, and then put the other TV up. And I'm doing everything all by myself. There's no way I could get somebody else to help me out with that while like messing something up. So those are kind of like the main reasons why I didn't get an 85 inch or 83 inch like an OLED screen TV to do like a comparison. So if anybody wants to know.
Yeah. Nah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Size is always a factor when I'm talking about reviewing TVs myself, and I'm like, I usually try to stay with 55 inch and 65 inch because of like the size. I mean, like also I got to think about space and stuff too when I'm requesting units or when I'm getting stuff myself. It's definitely 65-inch or lower for me personally, because otherwise it's a nightmare to deal with. Especially, man, the Bravia 9, that you're right, it's heavy. I mean, just 65-inch alone was pretty heavy, so
And the crazy part about it is that so So I took some time off last year from doing videos, but the year before that, when I had the S95C, the 77-inch, that TV wasn't. It was heavy, but it's not nowhere near as heavy as the Bravia 9. I felt that the Bravia 9 is twice the weight of the S95C, the Samsung.
Uh-huh.
So that'll give people just an idea of how heavy that TV is. It feels like you're picking up a solid brick. And so you have to
Yeah.
be very careful with
The
the
box,
TV. So
right?
I can, yeah, the box. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like yeah, because when I did the unboxings, when I was taking the box out and I was even picking up the TV and putting it on the mobile stand that I have, that TV was like I luckily I was able to pick it up. But I always recommend to people, please get two people to put the TV together because it's like if you're doing it by yourself, you're more at risk as in breaking the TV. And then also too,
Facts.
there's certain things that I wish I would have showed like how to put the legs together. Those are a two-person uh, type setup because like if you do it like the proper way of doing it, you're supposed to have someone supposed to be holding the TV up as you're putting the legs together, and it's a very easy way to take the box apart. But if you're doing it by yourself, you can't do that. So you have to lay the TV down on the ground. That's like how all my unboxing videos. And a lot of people say, you could do this. You can't
Yeah.
do it by yourself.
Nah,
So
but the fact that you actually like handled it by yourself, I thought
it
that was
is
kind of
very
crazy. I was
interesting.
like, whoa. I was like, whoa. I was like,
Yeah.
dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So,
I watched
but
another video where somebody was struggling, someone was struggling, but I feel that because I was struggling myself, and I definitely needed help. So, um, we
and,
can make fun
and
of
you know
that
what's
all we
funny?
want, but
What the funny part about that is that what was going through my head was I was thinking about I was thinking about I forgot who made a video, but they almost tipped over.
oh
It was
yeah,
Brandon. Yeah,
yeah,
it was Brandon who did it.
that was crazy.
Brandon who I think it was the A80K during that
I think it
time
was
or the AA
I think it was the
L.
A80J or the A90J.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah,
remember.
AADJ. Yeah, but I remember he flipped over that's where what I was thinking when I was doing the Bravia
Yeah.
9 unboxing because I was saying I'm about to on T I'm about to do this on video and I'm about to tip this TV over. So that's why I started thinking to myself. I said, "No, let me just chill out for a second and do it right." But yeah. So if anybody want to ask that question, why I'm not doing it properly, it hasn't doing the unboxing. I'm a one person
Yeah.
team. So it's like I'm not like branding yet where I get other people to kind of help to do the unboxing part. So maybe once I get up there, I'll start doing that more. But nobody don't want to hear about the unboxing. Let's talk about the Bravia 9.
Yeah. No, no, I always like to hear about the unboxing because I think it's one of the experiences that is funny to me because I always don't like the unboxing. That's like the least my least favorite thing. And people get on me, they're like, "Man, we need unboxing videos from UKG." I'm like, "You don't want to see me unbox a TV." It's a struggle. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just not fun. So I mean, eventually we'll probably get unboxings done the right way, and I'll probably have somebody featured with the unboxings. But yeah, myself, nah, man. Like I had to get my like weight up and start like bench pressing more stuff. It's just like it's not happening right now. But yeah, I thought the Bravia 9 was a good TV. Like overall, like that's how I would categorize it, right? It's a good TV, and I think it is a premium TV. I struggle saying that it's worth the value that you're like.
Hmm.
I'm like I struggle to say like it's definitely worth the money. But for a mini LED TV, I can't think of many TVs that really kind of lived up to that. At the same time, like I thought the fact that it traded blows with like the QN900D, which is way more expensive, right? Like it's got that 8K tax on it. So the fact that it was trading blows with that, in some areas it won, in some areas it lost, I thought that was a good sign already. Um But at the same time, like I really expected it to just like mop the floor completely with it with the new backlight technology. So there's two sides to that, right? There's the backlight technology at times is really impressive. It does a good job, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of also more of the same. It's not too much changed here. Like there's some thought of that in my mind with the Bravia 9 because we still have a lot of the issues that we have with gaming related to mini LED, right? That was my biggest issue with it is gaming, and I don't think it's a very good gaming TV. I'd much rather have an OLED if I'm gaming. So that's kind of where I am with gaming in the Bravia 9 still. Uh, we talked about how we thought the Bravia 9 was gonna just like wipe the floor with every mini LED TV at the shootout. Like I thought that's was gonna be the case, but that's not actually what happened. Like the
Mhm.
QN95D from Samsung actually held its own and at times did look better in certain categories. So I mean, shout out to Samsung for the QN95D like holding its own. But at the same time, that's kind of a bit of a disappointment on my end, for what I would expect from the Bravia 9. I just thought that new backlight technology would really carry it. Um, and I feel like it won more so because of like the processing and the things that it does good because it's a Sony. Less so because of the backlight technology, which is that was kind of a bummer. But I do still think that there's a lot of awesome like things about the Bravia 9 with the backlight technology. Like there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, so since I have the TV right now, I agree 100% about the
Yeah.
gaming portion. And so, but I think this is like that for with I don't know Sony in general, but they have been doing a lot better with their QD OLED and OLED TVs now, because now they started to really get a little bit better with the gaming. But
Yeah.
because if I'm gaming on like an OLED or a QD OLED TV, I feel like I having a way better experience on the Bravia 9. And with the Bravia 9, this is something that I will say specifically, and a lot of people are asking me about blooming and blooming part, and I will talk about the SDR portion of it. With the gaming specifically, you do have to play with the settings a little bit. For me, I had to play with the settings to get it to the liking that I have. I
Hmm.
noticed that on playing not the HDR gaming but SDR gaming, one specifically because I got the Black Myth Wukong that just
Yeah.
came out, yeah, this week, and that's a SDR game.
Right.
And I had to play with the settings a little bit to get it to the liking that I have because I noticed that if you leave it on the default settings, the screen will tend to look a little bit washed out in
Yeah.
certain areas because of the brightness. And so
Hmm.
you have to fine tune some of those brightness and lower it just a tad bit. And that's something that I noticed like right off the bat. It's the same thing with SDR too, because a lot of people are going
Yeah.
to is going to complain about the SDR. The HDR, on the other hand, the HDR is really good, but the
Yeah.
SDR you do have to put a lot of touch and care with the settings. That's just me in general.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's just like I that was like one thing that I noticed right off the back when you look at the default settings.
That's a really great observation. I was told the same thing from a lot of people who evaluated this, especially on a professional level. So, like, your observations with SDR is spot on, especially with game mode, like where you're talking about it can look a little washed out, right, at the maximum brightness. You can't really push the brightness in SDR with game mode. You really just cannot. So that's going to disappoint maybe some people who are looking to push the brightness in SDR game mode. I know, like, typically some people do like to do that. Others like to keep it more. you know, to the more so like what their room type is. But that's why everybody has their own preference. But there's just you can't push it in SDR, or else you will get it to look a little bit washed out. Especially in game mode. Like
Yeah.
I noticed that as well. And it's not something that I thought was that bad until it was really pointed out to me. And like I said, it really stuck out to you too. So I think that says a lot.
Well, the reason why I noticed this so much is because I have the X95K. I was running into the same
Yeah.
issue as well too with
Mm-hmm.
the X95K because I have like multiple settings depending on what content that I watch. And when I looked at the default settings, I was like, something is off with this TV. And I know that on the gaming portion of the Bravia 9, the black equalizer, that's what it started to brighten up the screen tremendously. And then so you really can't use that as well. And then they got different gaming picture settings from standard to first.
Mm.
The
Kind of
picture
cut
didn't
out for
look
a sec.
all that. Oh, can you hear
Oh
me now?
yeah, you're good. You're good.
I was talking about the picture settings for the Bravia 9 or just all latest Sony TVs is that they got the standard first person shooter RTS picture settings, which is great to have, but standard in my opinion looked the best. But you still have to play with the picture settings to get it to your liking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like I said, it's one of those type of things that I don't get frustrated about, but I can see like another consumer or somebody who paid that amount of money and they take a look at it and they say, why is my default settings look so terrible? I can see where they coming from on certain perspectives. But one
Yeah.
thing I do appreciate Sony about is that they give you that flexibility to go into the picture setting to try to tweak it as best that you possibly could to a certain extent compared to like LG. I know when I was looking at the C3, not the C4 this year, but the C3 last year, I noticed that you don't have that flexibility as in tweaking the settings in game mode for SDR specifically. And that's one thing that I think is the differences between what LG and Sony can do. Now, Samsung, on the other hand, I think is one of the better or even the best gaming TVs. In
Yeah.
my opinion, when I did review the S95C at that time, even though granted it still had issues when you're trying to connect it to your AVR where it has some black flickering, but if you have it connected to your console specifically, then you're not going to have that issue. But I felt like I had a better experience with the Samsung TV compared to all the brand manufacturers. So that's kind of like where I'm at with Samsung or just gaming just in general.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Samsung Gaming is one of the best for sure. I think their only issue that Samsung right now has is with HDR. It does still push you into uh not BT 2020, so you're in DCI P3, right? And that's not great because like with movie mode and filmmaker mode, you're now in BT 2020, which is great. The Yeah, if they fix that, then game mode will just be even better. You have to like manually now do it and change some settings, and it is not the easiest thing to figure out, but for most people, it's not something they'll end up doing. That's the biggest part of it for me is out of the box, it could be better for that sense.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree.
yeah, on the topic of like setting itself apart from other mini LED TVs, um, I do think it is the like probably the best mini LED TV you can buy, but I don't know how much better it is than the one, that you could buy that's a little bit less. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody talking to me the other day asking if they should get a Bravia 9. Is it really worth, spending that money for, saving up for? or should they just get Hisense U8N? Um, and I got the U8N. That's actually right behind me right now, and I gotta say it's not like it's not a huge difference. Like it's better, sure. Like the Bravia 9 is definitely better, but I can't sit here and just say it's like so much better. And then that's the thing that I feel like that's the case with a lot of the mini LED TVs. Like even you were talking about the QN85D, that's just as good as the QN90D. Like that's how crazy like we're talking about like things are getting. But I don't like when the screen coating is what really messes up the picture quality for me. So, for example, the QN90D, something about that screen that I don't like. I also don't like that switch to the VA panel. Whatever reason why um, they're using this different type of VA panel this year, and it's got a screen coating because VA needs a special screen coating to fight off angle, right? So that's my biggest issue with a lot of the mini LED TVs. I think the Sony screen coating isn't that great as well. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I think that's another one, and the Bravia 7 too. Like I know you've seen the Bravia 7 screen coating. That it's not the best.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
not the
I had
best.
some
So
comments about
yeah,
that. Yeah, because when I was at Best Buy and people were saying like, "How can you not like the Bravia 7?" I think it's a great T. I think it's a good TV. And
yeah,
don't
it
get me
is a good
wrong,
TV.
it is a good TV. But for me, and I said this before multiple times. I'm not a person who likes semi-gloss screens,
Yeah.
and the Bravia 7, the S95D has that. And the thing is that I know people say like, well, once you get to your house and turn off the lights, you're not going to notice it. I get that. I get where that argument is at, but it's still, the thing is that my reasoning is that I feel that I have a better picture with a glossier screen because it gives that more of that translucent uh, uh, viewing compared to a semi-gloss, because it's like it doesn't matter if you shine a light up to it, you still kind of see that I want to say a glare, but it gives like an off-putting look to me
It's like a
when I'm looking
yellow
at certain
tint too. It's like
yeah.
yeah, it's odd. I always see it when I walk into Costco, and it's like it doesn't look great under those lights for sure. Like
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I automatically am kind of turned off by that TV. But when you sit there and look at it, like I got to see it at a showroom at the store nearby, and it looks good. Like I'm probably gonna take video of it next time I go there, but
Yeah.
straight on, this is an impressive TV. I don't think it's too far off from like the brightness of a Bravia 9. So that's one of the things too. Is like for a lot of people, I would just go say like, "Ow, that hurt." Let's say like you can get a Bravia 7 in a bigger size than a Bravia 9 and say like 75 inch or
Okay.
65 inch, right? Like I would say, yeah, just get that Bravia 7 in the 85 inch and you're good because I don't know that you'll miss that much. I do think there's improvements for sure. It's just how much is the biggest question for the average user.
One thing I do want to kind of like follow back to what you just said about the Dyson U8N,
Yeah.
and even the TCL Q8. And I think you was mentioning about the question that somebody's asking you, like, why should I get the Bravia 9 compared
Yeah, yeah.
to TCL or Hyson? I think those TVs are really, really good, and those are very, very good arguments and discussions with.
Hmm.
But I will say the reasoning why, like I said, Sony priced their TVs because they really think their TVs are at this, quality level.
Yeah.
And from my opinion, I do see the differences when it comes to HDR impact. And what I mean by that is that I noticed that if I'm looking at a Hisense or a TCL, when you're looking at HDR content specifically for Hisense and TCL, the whole screen just get bright.
Mhm.
While the Sony TV, they work on just the specific areas where it needs to get bright at. And
Yeah.
I think those are where are the key differences are between those brands. It has a lot to do with the processing. And just like when I was doing my comparison between the Sony X95K and the Bravia 9, I saw the differences of what the Bravia 9 did, not only just the HDR impact and looking at the color and looking at the blooming and shadow detail and so forth. I do see that as a jump,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like a leaps and bound jump, as in saying like, oh my goodness, I'm about to go ahead and sell my X95K right now and then go and jump on the Bravia 9. I didn't feel that way, but I do see the differences, as in I can see what Sony has really been doing, cooking in the background, as in making sure that the TV that they're going to provide to you is it shows that it's an upgrade.
Yeah.
But it's just the thing is that if you don't have the X95K, or if you haven't bought a TV in the last couple of years, let's just say 3 years or 4 years, and you're thinking about going into the mini LED territory, I do say that the Bravia 9 is a great TV to buy if you're looking in that realm of an 85 inch. I'm saying 85. If you're going over 75 inch, like you're looking for an 85-inch screen TV, I think that's a really, really good TV. But it is a hard pill to swallow if you're looking for a 65 or a 75 inch, where, in my opinion, I think QD OLED is the better technology
Yeah.
in that area. When I'm looking at the A95L and I'm looking at S95D, even though I do not like the screen on the Samsung S95D, but the A95L, on the other hand, I feel like those TVs are great. I mean, I think those TVs are actually amazing. It's
Yeah.
just my issue is that it's the size. And I said this before I took my break. If they had like an 83-inch version of the QD OLED, the X95K would be going somewhere. I would have sold the X95K instantly, because
Yeah.
I really feel that the QD OLED technology is there. They do hit incremental updates when it comes to every year model, but I really like the picture when it comes to that technology compared to any other, technology, mini LED and RGB OLED and stuff like that. So
Yeah. So let me um first let me say I agree with that. I do think that QD OLED is the best that you can get right now. I don't think that's too debatable in terms of like display technology. Um when I'm pulling up all these TVs side by side, I'm not sitting here trying to dissuade people from getting the Bravia 9. I'm just putting like what's available in perspective for everybody. Um, and the QN90C is $2,000. It says C price in cart, but just keep that in mind. It's $2,000, so it's the same price as the U8. And so I do think that your comparison, which I'm gonna dive into with you in a second, because I really want to ask you about some things. But on the topic of how these TVs all compare and what the average buyer is going to look for in a TV, I feel like all these TVs offer that, right? Like if you're looking at an LCD TV right now, I would say all these are somewhat comparable. And if you put them all in the same room, there's going to be things about them that almost look the same in a lot of cases. Um, the Bravia 9 can definitely have a little bit more of an advantage when it comes down to light control, but at the same time, there is problems of its own with that. But I believe iron those out. You talked about maybe they're already fixing it with a firmware update. I think that's something we'll have to look into a little bit more. But with regards to all these TVs, price wise, it's just hard to make an argument right now for the average buyer to get a Bravia 9. And I think that was my whole thing about if it's a little overrated. I don't want to say it's overrated because I don't think that it's something that I rated that highly in the first place. Like I still think that I would probably buy it over most W OLEDs in like certain circumstances. But QD OLED, it's under that, right? G4, it's under that for me. And when it comes
Yeah.
down to like W OLED, that's kind of, I put it just maybe above that. But I do think it's like almost even. You can make cases where in a dark room, I'd rather have a W OLED still, right? But in a bright room, obviously, I think I'd rather have the Bravia 9. But in a bright room, give me a QD OLED still. Like, I think they're bright enough for the most part. Like, I think that the S95D is near perfect almost, except for the coating for some people. Like, they just don't like the coating. I don't mind it, but that's just because I don't watch in circumstances where that's going to affect me. Now, if you got a room tight where you got things shooting off the screen and that coating may be an issue. So there's that. And I got people in the comments talking about like the Bravia 9 shouldn't be held, next to these TVs. It should be held against the G4 and the S95D. I don't think it fares very well against the G4 and the S95D in terms of just pure image quality. Like 85 inch is the only one I can make a case for because of the price compared to, a 77 inch, right? Like if you need an 85 inch, okay, the Bravia 9 is a little more justifiable. But if we're talking about all the other screen sizes, like maybe 65 inch, 55 inch, I don't think I can make a real argument for the Bravia 9 with that in mind. But I do like the Bravia 9. I said it's still the best mini LED TV, but I just don't think that's saying much sometimes.
Yeah. And as much as I like the Bravia 9, it does have its faults and stuff, and we could kind of like talk about the blooming as well
Yeah.
too. On the blooming department, it definitely does a way better job than the X95K,
Yeah.
and I could tell when I was looking at, and we could probably pull the video up,
Sure.
um, that we have, but specifically,
You remember what scene it was or
it was
timestamp?
the Batman. I don't know. I don't remember the timestamp. I
Is it
remember
the
it was the
one with the
Batman.
car?
Yeah, it was one with the car when Batman was like looking inside the car with the Penguin and stuff. So specifically,
Upside down one?
yeah, the upside down one. Yeah, specific. Yeah,
Okay.
yep. Yeah, it was yeah, and that's one thing about it. I was trying to. It was so many movies that I wanted to show everyone, and I have like 3 hours of footage, but I had to cut so much content down to into a
All right.
digestible size,
So
so I didn't want to make it too long of a video.
you, s- you
But
s-
it's
um
almost there, a
you
little bit
see it?
further.
Okay. So you can see it on the screen,
Well,
right?
yeah, even this part. So one thing that kind of stuck out to me, and that's where I was saying like where the upgrade is that on the X95K, as much as I like that TV right now because I own that TV, the 85 inch, this scene specifically, the Batman, it was
Mm-hmm.
struggling, and I'm talking about default settings. So I had to play with it. I have my own settings that it doesn't look the way that it looks right now. But if you put in apples to apples against the Bravia 9 and X95K on their default settings specifically, and on this, and this is Dolby Vision, the one that's showing Batman,
Yeah.
um, the Bravia 9 does a way better job as in handling the blacks and the shadow details. On the X95K, on the other hand, you can see that you see the color volume start to lose a lot. And then on top of that, too, uh, the blacks will start to really wash out in this
Mhm.
type of scene, in particular. Now, the camera did over exaggerate it a
Yeah.
bit. So but when I was putting those 2 TVs side by side, and I was trying to, do it as, high of at my exposure as possible just to give kinda like a good representation, because I think I was, I forgot what my exposure was. I think it was like 3,200 or whatever the case may be, but you could see that the Bravia 9 or Sony what Sony did with the Bravia 9 for this year did a really, really good job.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there's still some things on the Bravia 9 where I think they could do a better job with, but going against the X95K, I could see those upgrades. And then I do see the highlights, I do see the shadow details on there. The blacks look better. But if I'm comparing the Bravia 9 to like a QD OLED technology or like OLED, they still have some things that they need to work on. And this is where I'm going to start talking about the blooming part. When it comes to HDR content, I think they do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Uh, as in blooming and even the light bleed that goes into the black bars, they do a good job. Now, the black bars are still elevated ever so
Yep.
slightly, and I'm talking about very, very slightly. But with the Bravia 9 being so bright, you don't notice it because your
Mhm.
eyes get so it get adjusted real quickly, you don't notice it. But if you go up to the TV and actually really look for it, you notice it, that is elevated ever so slightly, compared to, OLED. OLED technology is instantly it turns off the
Right, of
pixels,
course.
so it's totally black. But also too, when it comes to going back to the blooming area, they did a good job with the HDR, but where I was going with the SDR portion of it, that's where you have to do some fine tuning with the default settings. Because when I look at SDR straight out of the box, the TV is bright, but
Mhm.
you notice that the picture is is a little bit washed out, and that's where you have to play with it. And I'm talking about cinema mode specifically, picture setting. I'm not talking about the professional mode. They kind of like turn down the brightness to like level 4 compared to cinema is like 35. That's where you have to massage it a little bit,
Yeah.
as in like playing with the settings, to your liking to get it uh, to a better picture, picture wise. That's kind of like my experience with SDR. And then also going back to blooming on SDR specifically, that's where it does a good job, but but they could do a better job, especially when it comes to rolling credits. When you see like credits from a movie, after you're done with it, you do see blooming. And
Mhm.
then other scenes like subtitles, you don't see it so much, but for SDR you do. But for some reason for HDR, you don't notice it that much. It's like
Yeah.
with when the HDR is engaged, depending on the content, you don't notice it, and which is kind of like weird. So that's something that I think Sony does need to address. I don't know if that's something that's a firmware update or is it something that it could do for the next year model, but I just know the SDR part is lacking a bit.
Yeah.
So, but it's nothing against the people who own Bravia 9. I still think it's
No.
a great TV,
No, yeah,
but I just
like
had to throw that out there just to be very, very transparent.
I mean, it looks like a good step up from the X95K in this scene particularly. Like, so that's kind of like my observation with the Bravia 9 as well. I thought like the dark scenes for a mini LED TV were really fantastic, man. I thought that TV did a really good job with that. Um, but I do want to kind of like dispel the myths of it being like this bloomless, LCD TV or like it not still having a little bit of lift in the black bars, like it does have that still. So like you're still getting that. It is a mini LED after all. It's not immune to that. So it's not the end of the world. But it's just we gotta call out that those things do exist. And it's not something that Sony can just like fix because it's like inherent to the technology. It's like you can only do so much to get rid of it. So let me speed up to this part
S-
here where
So so going back to that, so this is something you did touch on. So this is going. So now I'm trying to go full circle. So going back to TCL and Hisense
yeah.
specifically. So what TCL and Hisense does specifically, they do a really good job to make those black bars like look absolutely black, but they are sacrificing some of the picture quality and content compared to Sony. On the other hand, they don't care. They're
Mhm.
supposed to trying to get the reproduction as perfect as possible as what the content is supposed to see, knowing that they're going to sacrifice some of the blacks. On the other hand, TCL and Heisen, they're saying like, well, we'll sacrifice some of the picture, knowing that we trying to be as close to OLED as possible. So those are kind of like the battles that as a consumer, that's kind of like up to you
Yeah.
to choose which camp you want to go to.
Mhm.
But going back to kind of like this scene specifically, Batman, and this is playing in Dolby Vision, I had an issue with Dolby Vision for a very long time, and I think that on the Bravia 9 playing Dolby Vision on the Apple TV and the internal apps, it looks really good. On certain things, I still had to do some tweaks here,
Yeah.
but this is the default settings that you have here. But if I want, but outside of that, some tweaks where I had to like lower the brightness of the black level to like 50 to 49 to make it look better, just for example. But going back to the specular highlights of Sony compared to TCL and Hisense, Sony does a better job with, if you see the flames in the background on the Bravia 9 specifically, it
Mhm.
really pops out at you. And I noticed if I was playing the same scene when I was reviewing the Hisense U8H at the time, and I was watching that same movie, I noticed that it really didn't that highlight didn't really stick out. It was just the whole screen was just really bright. And that was something that I felt like, oh, this is great that it's bright, but it's not really honing in what I should be focusing on
Yeah.
as a consumer or a viewer.
So let me ask you, when you're using the Bravia 9, what was the dimming mode that you used the most for like this review? And then also like which one did you find to be the best on the Bravia 9? Because like there's definitely like way different behaviors when it comes down to the dimming modes.
So in this video specifically, everything was on default. So
Medium.
the local dimming is on medium, but outside of the video that I did, I keep it on local dimming at high. And the reason being is because going back to the black bars and certain
Mhm.
things, when it
Exactly.
comes
Yep.
to the blooming area, I noticed that when you go to local dimming high, the black bars does get a lot better compared to medium, and it start to look almost absolute black when you get the local dimming to high. I know people going to debate with me, say, "Oh, you're supposed to have it medium because you get brighter highlights and stuff,"
I'll
but
tell
that's
you,
kind of
yeah.
like, but for me, I just like that's what I like. I
Yeah.
want to kind of have the blacks preserve a little bit better. Say just Sony just throwing everything at you, and then you start to notice certain things like, why does it look a little gray in this area compared to, if I'm looking at a different TV. So that's why I like local dimming at high and stuff like that. And I do see the differences when you switch the modes from medium to high, because when you look at medium and when you look at certain highlights like John Wick 4, and you can see the illumination in the background, it is brighter
Yeah.
compared to local dimming is high, but you start to see a little bit of bleed, light bleed when it goes to the black bars.
Yeah, yeah.
And it does a better job on the Bravia 9, but the X95K will start to suffer more because it has less local dimming zone, and it doesn't have that backlight technology like the Bravia 9. And you start to see, and I'm trying to point, but you can't really point, but there's a lamp right next to Keanu Reeves at the bottom of the X95K. You will start to see the black bars will start to really gray out. And I was trying to do it with the camera the best I possibly could, but I only could do so much. But with the Bravia 9, on the other hand, you'll see a little bit of it, but it's not as much as the X95K. This is with local dimming high, at medium. But if you do it at high, you don't notice it with both TVs. You'll see a little bit more on the X95K, but the Bravia 9 does a really good job of keeping suppressing those light bleeds once you switch the local dimming part.
Yeah. Nah, so like pretty good observations there. Like when it comes down to the dimming modes that you can use, I I had to stay at medium because if you were at high, you would notice that like details just disappeared, bro. Like they were just gone. Like I don't know what it was, but every time I was on a really challenging scene, it just swallowed up any sort of stars or anything like that. Like details were gone. So it really does kind of condense in to try to make everything look like it's blooming free, right? Like that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to make sure there is no blooming whatsoever. It does a pretty good job of that, to be honest with you, on high, but it does definitely kill some details. It really does. And so on medium, you will get a little bit of lift in the black bars. You will. So it's kind of
Hmm.
like a pick your poison thing on
It
that.
really is.
I really think that it's up to you. It's your preference at the end of the day. Like you were speaking to, and I think that's a perfectly, well articulate. I think yes, it is basically your preference. You like that, so you use that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's one of those things where there is no right answer with the mini LED. Sometimes it seems like, and that's the thing you always fight with these kind of types of movies, right? Like these are not the
It,
types of movies you really want to showcase a mini LED on. Can it be
oh,
done? Yeah, absolutely. And I think the average person that buys this TV will think this looks awesome. But like in context, having seen it next to an OLED, and then also like knowing that it's the same price as an OLED, and that's the thing you're always going to have that internal battle with. And then other
yeah.
mini LED TVs actually can do this kind of scene a little bit better than the Bravia 9. You know what I mean? So it's like that's the thing where the Bravia 9 does seem it could improve. That there can be some improvement with that in that area. And I thought like the whole purpose of the backlight technology being like better overall was going to be like this is where we see the biggest improvement, but it's not a huge improvement. It's not like a huge difference. Like I'm looking at your X95K, like this scene looks
It's
fine on both, and you said like you wouldn't
yeah.
upgrade. So like the fact that you're
Oh,
saying you wouldn't really upgrade, like
no.
that tells me a lot. So
Yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to say too. I didn't mean to
oh yeah,
talk
no.
over you on that one, but yeah, and I'm not bashing Sony and the Bravia 9 and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
no,
I
not at all.
really, yeah, and this is one thing I'm telling everyone right now is just like the Bravia 9 is a really, really good TV, and it is an upgrade to the X95K. However, it's not a upgrade where I'm going to go ahead and run to the whoever sells the TVs and stuff like that. Let's just say Best Buy or whoever sells TVs and say, okay, I want to go ahead and get the Bravia 9 and I'll go ahead and sell my X95K. I like my 85 inch X95K, and I've been telling people for the longest time for the last couple of years it is a special TV, and you can see in this scene in particular I do feel that the Bravia 9 did do a better job visually. However, it wasn't a night and day difference. Like how I was looking at, when Samsung came out with the S95B, where we were saying like, "Oh, this is a completely a different animal." I wasn't getting that feeling when the Samsung S95B came out, when I was looking at it compared to my Sony A90J. And
Mhm.
those are kind of like the things that I was looking at as a saying like, "Oh, I could see the upgrades," and I think Sony did a really, really good job. But it comes into but or however, I don't feel that I need to upgrade
Yeah.
just because of that.
Yeah, right. And I like props to Sony. I think they do definitely deserve like yeah, they made a really good mini LED TV. That's what they did. Um and they should be praised for that. So, yeah, I mean like there's not I don't think anything should be taken away from Sony. With that in mind, but this is more so to the question of what TV people should buy. And I think for a lot of people, the Bravia 7 is actually a better buy than the Bravia 9. I really
Yeah.
do. I really do. After seeing it in a showroom next to the Bravia 9, I was like, yeah, man, I honestly, it's not something where I couldn't blame the average user for just saying that this isn't worth it for me.
Yeah, and this is where I'm kind of like coming from too. I had to laugh at Brian because Brian he's making some really great jokes right now. Him and FOMO. So I was a little distracted because I was looking at Brian and FOMO going back and forth. But I will say this, and I said this before. If you're getting like an 85 inch, if you get into like the bigger territory over 77 or 75 inch, I would say then mini LED TV would be kind of like your short end of the list
Hmm.
compared to like OLED TV. But it's still a really hard pill to swallow in that case because LG G4 really did a really good job for this year. Now I haven't reviewed that TV yet and stuff like that. I do see it at Best Buy, but I was really disappointed in LG last year because the G3 when you get to the 83-inch version was rocking the older technology. It didn't have the microarray lens technology compared to the 77-inch and the smaller TVs. So those are
Hmm.
kind of like the things I was like really upset and disappointed in LG. But now LG say, you know what? Now we have in our 83-inch version. And so we're really doing, now you see it, the technology in all size TVs. And so that's really kind of like now it's a hard pill to swallow between mini LED and OLED because then it's kind of like, then it comes down to the price. Now LG G4 83 inches is pricier than the Bravia 9. And
Yeah.
then the Bravia 9 is an 85-inch compared to 83 inches. So those are kind of like the things you got to start thinking about. But going back to the smaller sizes, if I'm comparing the 75 against a 77-inch like a G4 or S95D
Yeah.
or the A95L, that's a really, really hard pill to swallow to justify the price on that. I do see the upgrades, but I still would go through the QD OLED technology camp or
Hmm.
even the LG G4 camp and stuff. So those are kind of like ah
Yeah.
that's kind of like where I'm at with it. I'm like so
No, that's a really good point. And we should look at that. So, let's bring up Best Buy right now, and we're gonna kind of talk and see what the audience thinks. Everybody watching, I see Brian's in the house. What's up, Brian? What's
oh
up,
yeah,
man?
Brian's here.
What's up,
Oh, I
FOMO?
know. I know people gonna probably gonna kill me in the comments. It's like, why are you talking about the
Hey,
Bravia
Jennifer,
9
how you
like
doing?
this?
Yeah.
I'm 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 just I'm trying to be as transparent. I think it's a really, really good TV, but yeah, I think I think the hardest part for me is the price, and I can see
Hmm.
where people are really having a hard it's a hard pill to swallow compared to OLED technology and QD OLED technology. That's kind of like where I'm at with it. Now, if
Yeah.
the Bravia 9 was at the same price range as let's say the TCL and Hisense, I would be talking about something totally different. I would say Bravia 9 all day long. Go ahead and get the TV. You be good to go because it costs way less than LG and Samsung competitors and yada yada yada. So
Yeah, and I think that's like one of the things. Like, Bravia 9 does have the price going for it. Um, but again, like I said, I just hold it. I hold it just to a different kind of standard. I don't really put it up there with the G4 in the S95D. At first, I thought that I was going to, and I do for certain people. Like, for certain people, and I have to be specific about this. When I say like you want a bright TV for a bright room, that's you, right? That's what you want, and you watch it in vivid mode. Because if you watch it in vivid mode, you're watching on an OLED in vivid mode, you're kind of like taking everything away from the OLED. Like the OLED is not getting its strengths in something like vivid mode. So you might as well go with an LCD TV in that regard. Like the Bravia 9 in vivid mode is probably the best looking vivid mode that I've seen from any TV. And I still stand by that. Like I think that they do a really good job in the HDR vivid mode. I think that that TV just really hits like no other. And for those people that love that kind of look, the Bravia 9 has that. Where I don't think any other TV really has that same appeal. But
Yeah.
man, when you're talking about just pure image quality, watching movies and just man, I just do not see it on the same level as the G4 and the S95D. I don't see any mini LED TV on the same level as those TVs. I just do not.
But I will say this, and this is where people may say something. The motion, when you're looking at movie content, I do prefer the mini LED motion, like the Bravia 9 motion compared to OLED and QD OLED, because there I do see stuttering on certain content, and that's one thing you don't see with Bravia 9 or mini LED technology with movie content. Now gaming, that's a totally different category. OLED all day. OLED would do a better job because of the refresh rate and how the way it plays. But when it comes to movie content and motion, I prefer the Bravia 9 and stuff. So
Yeah. Motion for Sony is for sure really good. I like the motion on the Bravia 9 as well. I like LCD TV motion, honestly. Like, I'm sort of with you on that. I find that most flagship LCD TVs look really good with motion in mind. I don't have any issue with stutter or judder with most of them. Whereas, like, some OLEDs, I definitely have the occasional, like, hiccups or stutters with that. But on the flip side, you're talking about motion with gaming and talking about, like, 120 hertz, 60 hertz gameplay. Like, you, you don't have that ghosting, you don't have like those issues that you have with mini LED. So it's always like you got to go with the strengths of what you're looking for.
yeah, and then people
Surprisingly,
like
like, go ahead.
I was just about saying people like soap opera effect. I'm laughing at Jennifer Gala's comments,
Hey,
so I'm just making I'm just teasing because I thought that was pretty funny.
now I know she definitely loves the soap opera effect. She was talking about that last time we were talking about motion. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people actually like the soap opera effect a lot. Let me see where can I put this comment? All right, right here.
Yeah, I was
Um,
just about to say, yeah, usually you highlight the comments.
maybe we'll move us, make the comments a little bit bigger. There we go. This is a dynamic stream. I'm moving us around. I'm moving the chat window around. We're off topic. We're going back on
we're
topic.
gonna
It's all over the
we're gonna
place,
start
bro.
we're gonna start hovering around our
Right.
heads to be going somewhere like the Wizard of Oz.
The General Hospital effect. Exactly. Bro, I grew up watching that because that's all like my mom used to watch. So like I know all the characters and stuff like from back in the day, like Sonny Kratos and all, all kinds of dudes. I saw
I
Stephen A.
haven't.
Smith on there last time I was watching. I was like, what is Stephen A. Smith doing on General Hospital? But yeah, no,
That's funny.
that show is all over the top for sure. But anyway, back on topic. Um,
Talking about price.
yeah, let us know in the comments, guys. Not the comments. Let us know in chat your TV dilemma so we can help solve it for you. We'll kind of pull up side by sides like this right here where we have the prices. And let's kind of like make up some hypotheticals. Like right now, I think a lot of people are gonna be looking at a 55-inch OLED versus like a 55-inch LCD, right? So 55-inch, a lot of people are like, whoa, what are we going to do in terms of price and how much lower is it going to get? And I have those answers for you. So the $13.99 is what we're seeing for the OLED TVs. The S85D is $12.99. I wouldn't touch this with I wouldn't touch this. I'm not even gonna put this up for comparison. Um,
Mm.
God, the Bravia 8 is way more expensive. I like the Bravia 8, but not at this price. Not at this price. And then S90D is $13.99. A95L, that's its flagship, so that's a different category. For some reason the B4 is $13.99. That should be way cheaper. Because it shouldn't be the same price as the C4, right?
Yeah, they got to be updating their pricing and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
because I just noticed that the Bravia 9. So the funny thing is that you see
I put
3500.
8.
I don't know if they updated on my side, but earlier, I think it was earlier today or yesterday that I looked at it. It was 3700.
Yeah.
So they must have just did the adjustment. Um, but going back to, if you go back, I think your other screen that you had.
Is
Uh,
there a 55-inch
from,
U8? I don't think there is. Yeah, there
let
is.
me
Okay,
see here.
there is.
Yeah, but going back to the price comparison, yeah, the G4 is still a little expensive though. Oh yeah, it did. It went down to 3,498. Oh, that's crazy. It was 3,700. Hmm. Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway,
Nah, it's
but
a
it is
good bump.
$1,000 difference between the 75 inch and 77 inch G4. So that would be kind of like a good discussion too. So depending on how your pockets are, do you got the
Yeah.
S90?
What? Hold up. I think you cut out, or I cut out. I don't
Oh, I
know.
probably cut out. Oh no.
Okay. All right.
My question was, did you have the S95D
So yeah, I had
in
that
part of it?
for a while. But like on this list right here, it's too expensive. So
Mm.
this is kind of what you're considering for like a flag, not a flagship, but like a mid level, I guess. This is basically kind of flagship for a lot of people. This is I would say the consumer space. This is where most people look, right? This is probably my most viewed content is in this price range. This whole S90D C4 QN90 U8. I don't put the QN90D on here because I think the QN90C is a better TV. Like, and it's still cheaper, so I put it there. Um, with OLEDs in mind, right now I can't tell you to get a Bravia 8 when it's the price that it is. And then you have these TVs sitting at the price tag they are. $13.99. I like both of these. I think the S90D is the better overall TV in this whole batch right here. But all these TVs are good. So if you're more towards like I can't get to that $13.99 budget, go with the QN90C or the U8. You'll be happy. You'll be happy. And if you can't quite get to the U8 or the QN90C, go with the QM7 because you'll be happy with that as well. Like anything below that, I feel like you're just kind of fighting with too many TVs that are similar. Like it's really just going to be about features if you're below that price range. But like with these in mind, I think this is where you're starting to get into like really top notch picture quality. And then after this is where you start to get diminishing returns, where you just get little increments of improvements.
Yeah. Um, I think it just comes down to your price range, and
Mm-hmm.
if you're upgrading from like last year TV, I wouldn't do it. Um, but I don't know. That's kind of like another thing I'm just kind of thinking about too. Uh, with looking at the prices and stuff. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to be for Black Friday because you did do some really good research. Not like yeah, I think it was the last podcast that we were on where you was talking about the G4 prices, LG prices,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen on Black Friday to see if it might go a little bit lower. depending on the competitors and stuff, is going to be offering.
That's
But
a good
going back to what I was going to say is that it depends on what your budget is.
right. Yeah, so all right, let's answer a couple of questions in the chat. If you guys have questions, put them in the chat. We'll get to them in order that they're asked. If we missed them, try to ask again. And if you want to jump the line, you can always send a super chat if you want to support the channel. That's always appreciated if you do that. So let's go to King GT, who is asking, please tell me G4 55, S95, D55, dark game room for PC gaming and NFL football. Man, for me, gaming, I think when you talk about gaming, S95D or G4, to me, it's the S95D. It really is. And you're talking about a dark room, so that screen coating is not going to be an issue for you. Right now, it doesn't look like they are on sale, but they will catch a sale a little bit later. Looks like the G4 is actually $100 cheaper, so it's got that for it. And you also, with the G4, you have to keep in mind that it does have that 5-year panel warranty. Do I think that the G4 and the S95D are so much separated? Not really. No, only in game mode. And I think the G4 has a really good game mode. And there's arguments to be made about how good the game mode is. I do think that it's pretty good. I think the HGIG implementation is really good. It holds on to color well. Everything about the G4 in game mode looks great. It's just that the S95D is more capable with game mode in mind. And I feel like I just think that when it comes down to game mode on the S95D, I wouldn't pick a different TV. As far as movies and TV shows, I really like the G4 because of just that extra sauce that they put on it. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's that processing, right? They take it to a different level this year with the processing. They really put a lot of research and development into that new processor, and it shows, right? They do a lot of depth enhancement. They do a lot of detail enhancement. So it's sharper, it's clearer than a lot of different options that are available. Maybe a little too sharp at times, but not much sharper than, say, what Sony and Samsung does. It just LG does it on a different scale. They do different things, especially with their tone mapping. So the G4 is a special TV in that regard. But when it comes down to gaming, man, S95D is that special. It's special. I think that the S95D could be a perfect TV if it had the BT 2020 like just right off the bat in game mode, but you don't. So you have to kind of tweak some things to get it to look a little bit better. Because right now, like, it's just defaulting to DCI P3, and that's not the greatest with game mode in mind. So like, you do want to change that. I don't think most people will change it. I also don't think most people will mind or care or look deep enough to care about that. And in like a regular video, I probably don't even talk about that because it's just so over most people's heads. But in like an in-depth live stream like this, I'll bring it up. That's how like I feel about the S95D in terms of like the game mode. And then the actual picture quality for movies and TV shows is really good as well. Out of the box, man, that color is, whoa, it's so spot on in HDR. And I've talked to Classy about this. He really thinks that the S95D is a special TV with HDR in mind, and they really just have to make a few changes next year, and it could be really good.
And I was just going to say, you made a video which show in HDR too, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm-hmm.
a comparison between G4 and the S95D, especially in gaming. And
Yep.
yeah, and from that comparison, to my eyes, and like I said, I know it depends on the camera, and then you being in person, it looked like the S95D looked like it did a better job.
Yeah. I also like the S95D in sports better than both the G4 and the A95L. So, like, you talk about NFL football. Yeah, I really like the S95D for that kind of application. And PC gaming is great for both TVs. You can't go wrong. They're both 144 hertz support. It's really just gonna have to go down to like the gaming features that you need or want on your TV. But they're both great, you know. Like I can't sit here and tell you either TV is that much better than the other. They're both like having their strengths. Um, it's crazy how close these TVs actually are. And you know, the A95L is in this mix as well. So let me bring that in there actually. It's funny because like people are probably watching like, hey, how you don't forget about the A95L, the king of TVs? All right,
Yeah.
we'll bring it in. We'll bring it in. So he was just talking about these specific TVs. That's why I had them up. So that don't take offense, A95L lovers out there. I love the A95L as well. Okay. He was asking specifically about the G4 and the S95. Don't get mad at me. But all right. I digress. All right. So let's see. Is there any? I missed the other question. Let's see. Oh, you got. Does having 40 gigabyte HDMI on the S95D versus 48 on the G4 a big deal for future consoles and GPU? No, not whatsoever. Not really. This is something that most people probably won't even have any issue with. You're good. You're good with 40. 40 is enough.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments right now. That's why I'm being a little bit quiet.
Yeah. So I want to address this real quick because I don't think this
Yeah.
is very very true. So Samsung has panel lottery and bad processing. G4 looks terrible color wise when bright. Just get the Bravia 9. I don't think that the G4 has bad processing. I don't think the S95D has bad processing. I want to put that to bed, actually. Like, the S95D does not have bad processing. I don't think it's bad at all. Is it Sony levels? It doesn't do that extra thing that Sony does. It doesn't do that extra thing that the G4 does right now. But it is, like, it's still really good. Like, we're talking about the S95D. If you look at it in terms of the shootout, like, it was matching the reference monitor there. Like, so it's obviously got good processing. Otherwise, then you would have seen some anomalies there, right? We would have had some issues with it not matching the reference monitor if it didn't have good processing. So I don't think the processing is necessarily bad on Samsung. I really don't. I think that they definitely could do some work to like give you more options on the processing side of things where you know you could have more things to play around with and tweak. But I don't think the Samsung processing is bad at all, really. And the G4 looking terrible color wise when bright. Are we talking about like the bright HDR? Like it loses a little bit of color in HDR. Are we talking about that? Because that's more so just due to the tone mapping than anything else. There's going to be some instances where that's going to be because it's a WOLED, and certainly the biggest limitation against the G4 is that it is at its core still a WOLED. That is the biggest limitation to the G4. There's no doubt about that, right? But you know, talk about bright colors when getting bright. The Bravia 9 is not going to give you like bright colors all the time when it's bright either. It does start to lose some color. Like that's just what LCD TVs do as well. And I think people will get this confused because it's a quantum dot technology. Doesn't mean that it's going to look the same as a quantum dot OLED in terms of keeping its color. Like it's totally different. Something like an S95D compared to a Bravia 9, the S95D is going to do much better color-wise next to the Bravia 9. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that because they think that just because it's got quantum dots means that all of a sudden it doesn't have any issues with color and brightness. Yes, when you push this TV to a higher brightness, especially like you talked about in SDR, right? SDR, especially in game mode, you do start to experience some issues with the color.
Yeah, and one thing I do, something you pointed out, and I just remember, but doing my comparison as well for the X95K and the Bravia 9, it really depends on the content that you're watching too. Because I have noticed that when I was looking at Doctor Strange, both the X95K and the Sony Bravia 9 were very, very close to each other. I'm in talking about when it comes to HDR impact.
Mm-hmm.
There are some scenes that you like, oh, this look really good, but the majority of the scenes it was just like they look very similar to each other. Now, when I got to like Godzilla versus Kong, on the other hand, those are that was kind of like a completely different animal. That's where I was just like, oh, I really see Bravia 9 where it's really flexing his muscles against the X95K. So it's kind of strange. I don't know. And that's something that I think Sony probably need to talk to a Sony rep. I really think it depends what content you feed in it. And I don't know how the processing works or how it knows when it needs to do that HDR impact. But a lot of the comparisons that I was doing in my video, they were pretty similar to each other,
Yeah.
but it wasn't to a point that say like, oh goodness, this is like huge. But it depends on what movie you're watching. Because I noticed I played, yeah, Godzilla versus Kong. I noticed it was a big difference. But when I was looking at John Wick 4, when I was doing the comparison, both of them are pretty similar,
Yeah.
neck and neck.
Yeah.
And then when I was looking at the Batman, it was pretty similar to each other as well too. But Godzilla versus Kong was the one that I was like, oh, this is a really big difference. And then even Spider-Man, into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse, you see some differences here and there, but it wasn't like a night and day difference and stuff. So it depends. Like I said, I don't know how Sony doing it with the Bravia 9 when it comes to the processing, but it just doesn't over brighten everything like I thought it was going to do. But it depends on the content and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, like really when we're talking about color loss like that, right? It's pretty interesting to see because Bravia 9, really any mini LED TV, it's just a little bit better than what the G4 is capable of color wise. That's just the truth of it. Like when the way it measures and everything. Like, but the thing with the G4 is, yeah, it's definitely going to have times where it does look like this comment says from Saros owns. Um, it looks a little bit lifeless, and I think one thing that is kind of hard to put into words is it's really the way that the tone mapping is behaving, right? Like you will see that. Like you can change and play around with the toggles, like switch it into professional mode, play with the roll offs, and all of a sudden color comes back. So there's no doubt about it. Like whatever LG is doing with the HDR tone mapping, sure they show a lot of detail. They do that, but they lose a lot of color. They do. They do lose a lot of color in bright HDR. So that's why a lot of people are saying, hey, don't use professional mode. I say, forget that. Use professional mode if you have a G4. Because otherwise, you will have times where your HDR is like lacking. And that's not a very fun thing. If you bought a TV that's that expensive and your HDR colors look like a WOLED without MLA, like it doesn't impress me much at all when it's next to like an S95D. That's why there's times when it is next to the S95D where like it's not even close. Like the S95D just kills it. Like it's not even close. But when it does keep up with it, man, it is close. And then there's times where the G4 actually is looking like the better one. So it's more so one of those TVs where if you get a G4, you probably want to get it calibrated. To be honest with you, you probably want to get it calibrated, get those roll-offs set correctly so that you can have a really good color experience. But at the same time, man, it's hard to just say, hey, you should get a TV and then go, you have to get it calibrated. It's not necessarily, you don't have to, because you could do the professional mode thing yourself. That's not that hard. That's just messing with some roll offs.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really gonna have to check out the G4 because it's like some people really. It seemed like a lot of people do like the G4, but I'm looking at some comments saying like they didn't have a good experience. I'm kind of interested in take a look at that and then go
Oh
from
man,
there.
I think the
So
G4 will knock you off your feet. Like,
yeah, so
bro, honestly, the first time I saw the G4, I was like, this is the G4? Like, I saw the G3. I didn't have that kind of reaction.
yeah.
They're doing something with like the processing that I have not seen LG do. Like, that blew my mind. Like, the G4 was one of those TVs where when I first turned it on, watched HDR, I was like, wow.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
that there's something else with it. There's something different with this TV. It sticks out amongst four different TVs when it's side by side. Like that, it you can always point it out. Like that's the G4.
Oh, then I'm gonna have to. That's probably be the next one I pick up
Yep.
next after the Bravia 9. Then.
Because it plays with things that it's not supposed to. It breaks the rules. It breaks the rules. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't like that. Like if they're purists, they don't like that it breaks the rules, but it does very much break the rules.
Hmm. Yeah, I gotta definitely do that and
Yeah.
stuff.
Like if you're a fan of that whole like 3D pop look and
Yeah.
you're after the depth that these manufacturers are desperately always marketing and searching for different algorithms. Like they all do it, right? Sony does it, Samsung does it. They all do it. They all have some sort of depth enhancement algorithm. LG does it the best right now. Like it's not
Oh,
close.
and you know what? And let me go back to the Barbie night. One thing I really could say, the detail, maybe because it's probably a lot to do with it being a 75 inch, and I don't have the 85 inch. That's a good comparison. The detail on the Barbie night is it. They did a really good job. Compared to the X95K, and I do see the differences, especially in SDR. Content, and I think that processing chip is like what they did this year is really really good and stuff. So
Yeah,
especially when it comes to um yeah, looking at low bit content and then having it up converted, I noticed that there's not a lot of macro blocking and stuff like that. Because I
yeah.
know it's on the X95K because it's a lot bigger size, but on the 75 inch Bravia 9, I don't notice it at all. And I have to I got like close to the screen to just say like,
I know what
where
that.
is it?
Yeah, that's XR clear right there. Like
Yeah,
that. That's
it looks really good.
that's the difference between the X95K and then like the X95L last year. Like it's just carrying over to the Bravia 9. Yeah,
It's it's a real treat.
they
It's a
definitely
real treat.
do a really good job with low bit rate. Like and just content smoothing in general and content matching. Like they do that better than any other brand. So that's Sony's strength for sure. Um and they have that whole thing. Last year, the XR Clear, they have the algorithm where it like masks the mosquito noise and all kinds of stuff that they do. And they make sure that the HDR source that you're watching or any source that you're watching matches the source. Like so like if it's being brought to you in a different resolution, it makes sure it takes into consideration like the original resolution and the original frame rate and all that stuff. And there's a lot that goes into it. I'm probably not even explaining it right. I'm probably just gaslighting you right now. I don't even know.
Yeah, no, it's
but
good. It's good.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it does some of the things behind the scenes that make sure everything's working as intended. So yeah, let me go back to the G4 with this comment here from Wavebend. Saying, doesn't the fact that the G4 sticks out like that speak to how much LG is manipulating the image through processing? LG is desperately making the 3D pop through processing. No doubt about it. You know who else is doing that? Sony. You know who else tried to do it? Samsung. But LG's just doing it on a different level. So, like, this isn't nothing new from manufacturers. Um, there's just something different that LG is doing this year that I think you'll see. Samsung will probably try to do the same thing unless they just want to keep it pure. Like if they're just going after the pure look, they got it this year, which is funny because you never would have thought you would say that. But S95D is probably the purest TV in terms of the flagships right now. Like the other ones, they have like some sort of dynamic tone mapping, just static tone mapping on the S95D. It's probably as pure as you can get with that stuff. So, and as far
Yeah.
as the sharpness and the content smoothing, yep,
Oh, I was just about to say, after this comment, I do want to get Michael's comment. But going back to what
sure,
you're saying about the 3D pop, and I do agree with you with Sony. Going back to the Bravia 9, yeah, when it comes to HDR content, that it definitely it gives you that wow factor. Depending on what movie you're watching, and
yeah,
even SDR, once you massage it a little bit, it gives you that real. It gives you a really good look for it. But going back to the G4, yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. Check that out and
yeah,
stuff. So I think it comes down to preference and stuff like that. Because I think a
right.
lot of
It
times
is,
too, I think the comment was, and I'm reading it right now from Wavement. It's like people are talking about purists and said should these manufacturers do it or shouldn't do it. Is unless you have the professional calibrated TV, kind of like the one that the BVM had at the Value Electronics shootout, it's very very challenging to show what is right and wrong.
yeah,
And then the next question I think people need to ask themselves is because we always get into this argument, so oh, it's get outside of the creator's intent. I get that argument a lot, but then at the end of the day, too, you have to go by what you like the most and how you want to view the TV and stuff.
mm-hmm,
And everybody's a little bit different and stuff. Some people want that, they want that specific calibrated mode that is creators intent and so forth. And then you had that other person say, oh, I just want it on vivid mode and I'm perfectly satisfied with it. And then you just have a person say, I'm just looking for a TV just to watch sports and
perfect,
stuff. So
yeah,
you got a vastly different ways of looking at ways of doing it. And then you as a manufacturer, I'm talking like if I was LG or Sony or TCL, Hisense and stuff, that's where you have to get into the category as in like I got to pick based on what my audience is going to like or my future customer is going to like. And so those are kind of like you have to pick your poison. It's like if we go this route, then we will sacrifice in this area, but we know we'll capture this type of customer. So it's one of those win lose type scenarios. Like it's no perfect TV.
yeah. That's a really good question. Like, I mean, that's a really good like statement that you're saying. In general, it is all about people's preference, right? And it's all about like the question that we're gonna hit covers that. Like we were talking about just getting a TV for sports. Like we're gonna hit that question in just a second. But like I want to wrap
Mm-hmm.
this discussion up when we're talking about like these three TVs. It really does boil down to that, the preference side of things, right? Like S95D, in my opinion, you get that if you're a gamer. Like, I really do think this is the gamer's TV. Like, this is the best gaming TV you can buy on the market right now, hands down. You can watch movies and TV shows and all that stuff with it as well. But if you do any portion of gaming, like, I really like the S95D. Um, if you take gaming somewhat seriously. If you just like game casually on the side, maybe the LG G4 is still good for you. And then you really have to like want this look. that the G4 is providing. I think it's a specific look that once you see it, it's hard to like not want it. Honestly, just that's just my own personal opinion. I don't care like that is not the most purest image. I really think that this depth that they're creating is cool. To me, it's just really cool. Like no other way to explain it. I like the way it looks to my eyes. It brings the image out, and that's sort of what I want a TV to do. So I'm cool with that for the G4, and I think for those types of people who are more on the preference side of things, and those people will really like the G4. Now, if you're watching a lot of movies and you're streaming, and you're mostly watching like old stuff too, like streaming is a big thing for the A95L, in my opinion. Like you can't beat it when it comes down to like that's all you do is stream. You care about low bitrate content being an issue. You notice things like macro blocking. You notice these things. Like you could stream with all of these and they're all good, right? But if you're nitpicking and it's because you're streaming all the time and you're just nitpicking the little things, the A95L is gonna be like the choice there. So it's like really it's gonna come down to preference for sure, and it's gonna have to you're gonna want to look deep into the settings and see which one has like specific settings that you like. For example, S95D Game Motion Plus, like you are not going to get that on any other TV. A95L Reality Creation, you're not going to get that on any other TV. G4 being able to switch between all the different tone mapping modes, you're not going to get that on any other TV. Like so being able to set roll-offs for professional mode, you're not going to be able to get that on any other TV. So there's just things that it depends on what people want and if they're even going to dive that deep into it in the first place, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with you with that. Let's go.
Let's
Let's
hit
go
that
ahead and go to
question
the
from
other
Michael.
comment.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about. I think it's
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah.
I know it's so many back and forth comments about the G4.
And we're gonna take a few more questions. If you guys have a question, put it in the chat, and then we're gonna wrap. If you guys have a question, leave it in the chat, like I said. And if you want to jump the line and have your question read right away, super chat's the best way to do it. Otherwise, we may not be able to get to your question, but we'll try. We're gonna hit like 3 or 4 more questions, if that's cool with you, Max, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to hit Michael's question because
Yeah, where's that at?
he's asking some.
Okay, I see it. I see it. So
Yeah.
this one, right? A95L or B9, watching mostly
Yeah.
sports, buying either
Yeah.
tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, like, you want me to go first? You want to go first? It's up to you.
So for me, I didn't review the A95L of last year, but I did do the A95K
Yeah.
the year before that.
Pretty
And I
similar.
thought
Yeah.
yeah, so I think the sports was decent, but I don't think it was like great in regards. The motion was always been good, but when I because I have the X95K, when I bought the X95K, when I watched sports, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Um, if I'm only watching sports, that's one thing I want to be very, very specific on. If you only watching sports, I really like my X95K. The B9, that's kind of like my opinion because depending on your viewing habits, and I'm assuming depending on what sports you watch, I watch a lot of football, and I'm talking about America football. I'm not talking about football as in soccer. Well,
Right.
even soccer, I've been starting to watch that too. But when I was watching sports and stuff, I prefer the mini LED, which was the X95 and the B9 in that regards. It might be different from KG, but that's just me.
Yeah. So I think it really depends on what you value in sports. Cause dang, I keep hitting my elbow. The A95L and the B9 for sports, right? It depends on what you value. You value brightness, it's definitely the Bravia 9 because you can like slap that thing into vivid mode and like you could force it in the HDR, and I don't think I've seen any sports brighter than that in my life. And that's pretty cool if you like bright sports, right? Some people don't. And if you're in a light controlled room, maybe you don't like the brightest TV and you're going to turn it down and all that, right? So it really depends on what you value. If you value brightness, you go with the Bravia 9. And the motion is really good on both these TVs. So I don't think the motion is going to be an issue on either one of these TVs. Um, Fast-paced sports, though, like I really think that maybe the 895L is going to be better. But I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference in terms of like watching NFL football. To be honest with you, it goes through so much stuff. The broadcast itself gets processed in so many different ways where by the time it gets to you, I don't think this is really going to have that much of an impact. I've watched countless TVs side by side, and I rarely see a difference in NFL football. Like I'll see sometimes like the occasional artifact flying across the screen depending on what your motion setting is, but all of this stuff can be adjusted. And I don't think there's too much benefit between the A95L and B9 in terms of motion. So yeah, I don't
So
know. I think it's really just like, do you value brightness?
so here's another good question. So another person mentioned hockey. So this is where I start
So
to
dimming.
maybe switch and stuff. Well, I'm saying I may switch to the A95L, and this is the reason. Uh, with the Bravia 9, I don't have a clean screen, so DSC, dirty screen effect, and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that
You
too.
may have to play the panel lottery with that, and that may really determine of if you want to go that route or not. I noticed when I had, and this is going for the A95K, I'm not talking about the A95L. I noticed that those, when it comes to QD OLED, though the uniformity and when it comes to any, it doesn't have, it didn't have any dirty screen effect. I didn't see no issue whatsoever. So
Yeah,
that's another thing that may play a huge factor with. But going back to hockey again, it will be it will be a lot dimmer and stuff, and that's
yeah,
kind of like another thing that may deter. So that's something that I it's kind of hard for me to really say and stuff like that. I will go with the A95L when I'm watching hockey, just because of if you're sensitive to the during DSE, that's something that really will distract me if I'm watching hockey. So and I do watch hockey because my mother-in-law, she's like a huge Red Wings fan, even though they're not that great. But yeah, she watches a lot. So
yeah. And when it comes down to hockey too, like with the A95L and really any sports kind of with a scoreboard on the screen, like eventually this thing will dim down over time, and that's every OLED. Every OLED is gonna do. So I don't care what your OLED is, it's gonna dim when you're watching sports eventually. Some a little bit less prone to it, but it's gonna happen. Will you notice
yeah,
it? That's hard to say 'cause some people don't notice it because they're just kind of like in the content already, and it's like they really won't notice because it's not like all of a sudden, boom, it's like dim. It's just like starts to shrink down slowly, and you just don't notice it because your eyes get adjusted. So for a lot of people, they don't see it, but it definitely does it. Because there's times where like I'll be watching, and I'm like, I swear that was a little bit brighter. Like it doesn't
yeah,
bother me, right? But it's just like something that's in my head. It's like I think that was brighter. You know, where I have to say I think that was brighter. I don't know, but I think that was brighter. So when you have
yeah,
that kind of thought process in your head, you know something's happening, but it's not something that's gonna jar people where it's gonna be like, oh God, what happened to the screen? Um, with that in mind too, some brands are a little bit better than others at it. I felt like the S95D did a really good job with sports. I didn't notice too much dimming with the S95D with sports. The G4 was a little bit, sometimes it would dim, but for the most part, I thought it was good. A95L was good as well. But they're all gonna do it. and the Bravia 9 won't.
Yeah. Yeah, the Bravia 9 won't, but the DSE,
Yeah. And
that's kind of
you
like,
have DSE with G4 as well. You can have DSE with the
yeah,
S95D as well. You can have with the A95L. Is it gonna be as prevalent? Really depends. It's panel lottery. I think that
yeah.
you have a better chance at a cleaner QD OLED than any other panel on the market.
I will
I
say
haven't
that,
seen a
yeah.
W OLED. I haven't seen a W OLED that didn't have panel uniformity issues, and I haven't seen an LCD that didn't have panel uniformity issues. But I have seen a QD OLED, a few of them that were really cleaned. But I've also seen examples of some that were dirty. So yeah, there's definitely a panel lottery. I think your best chance is QD OLED at avoiding that. So hockey, QD OLED's a good bet.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the reason for that and stuff like that. It is, it's going to be challenging because the way is that, yeah, when you're looking at hockey, it does dim,
Yeah,
but the question is that do you rather have a DSE depending on the severity of it? I think to me that's more jarring and mess up my viewing compared to the A95L and stuff like that. So that's why I'm going that route.
yeah,
But if you have a completely clean screen, like a clean Bravia 9, you don't have any DSE, which it's going to be kind of hard to believe because it's like I haven't had a clean, mini LED since forever and stuff. And I looked at a lot of different brands. So I think it depends on how you feel about it
yeah.
as a consumer, and if it's distracting enough for you, then yeah, that may be a better route for you in that regards. But I just felt like QD OLED, yeah, that's where I'm going with it. I felt like those are a lot cleaner panels.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like I said, gaming and hockey, S95D for sure, Adam. I wouldn't get any other TV for that use case. Like if you just like I specifically only game and watch hockey, get a S95D. You will not be disappointed. I think that they have the brightest SDR game mode on the market for sure. So like if you're doing any SDR gaming, you got that covered. And then just so many great gaming features. Really, man, all these TVs, I can't stress it enough. They're all good. And they should all
Yeah,
be
they
good
all
for the
good.
price, right?
Yeah.
Like, for the price, they should all be good. And it's good that they're all good. I think that's great. The fact that we can't really hate a TV. Like, we can't be like, oh, this is garbage. We can't legitimately say that about any of these TVs. Um, so I think we've got that going for us as consumers. So props to Sony, LG, and Samsung at this flagship level right here for doing that with OLEDs. Like they are just knocking it out of the park. And they keep, bro, I'm telling you, they just keep going at each other every year. Like it is a battle back and forth. So if you're not buying a TV this year, it's okay because there's going to be a better one next year and a better one the year after that and a better one the year after that. So don't
Yeah.
worry about
Yeah,
that.
you're right
Like,
about that.
and that's the thing. Like people buying, like I don't know if I should buy right now. CES is around the corner. You're right. It is, and I don't know, like,
Yeah.
how many improvements there's gonna be, but it's always like that. It's always like that. When you wait until Black Friday, you always run the risk of like having that thought process creep into your mind, and then yeah, that's a story for another day. But I do think that these TVs are closer than ever, man. It showed that, like, even in the reference shootout, you saw how close these TVs were, right? Like the S95D
Yeah.
barely lost to the A95L, and in some areas beat it.
Yeah.
So pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah.
So on the topic of
Sorry.
though, mini LED, right? I was talking to High Def News. Let me see specifically if I could pull it up. Let's see on his website. I think he posted it. So it's on flat panels HD. Um, there's a new 230,000 mini LED dimming zone, like being developed. Like 230,000 mini LED dimming zones on a mini LED TV. That would be kind of crazy. I want to see
You
it.
know what?
You know, I want to see it,
I
and that would be the real test to see how close can I get for that contrast, right?
I think it's gonna be closer than what we think it is, because
Well, I mean, yeah, the Bravia 9 already looks really good, right? Like for most
yeah.
people, I don't think that they're gonna be like, I really miss OLED for like the average consumer. For
Oh
like
yeah, I will
for
say I
somebody
would say that
who's
too.
really used to OLED though, yeah, you definitely will. But
Yeah.
for the average consumer, nah. I think that the Bravia 9 is good enough for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, the Bravia 9 is, and for me,
Yeah,
I'm nitpicking. I'm really
for sure.
nitpicking on
It's
the
all
Bravia 9.
nitpicking.
Yeah, but yeah,
This whole review space is nitpicking, bro.
I am
Like,
like like the average person, someone who would take a look at it, they'd be like, "Oh, this is the greatest
yeah,
TV ever." And I'm nitpicking just because that I'm thinking of I currently have the X95K, the 85 inch, and I'm thinking as in like the next person or another person who have the same TV that I have. Do I really feel like it's warrant enough for me to switch to the Bravia 9? In my opinion, I don't think it is, because I still have issues with Sony and the media tech chip. So that's another thing I didn't even bring up, and I talked about that briefly in my
yeah.
comparison. It's just like I really get frustrated that I still have to select
Yeah,
the
that
option.
is so yeah, that's silly.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing that's holding Sony back is they don't make their own chips, man. It's like,
and that's what goes into gaming. And people who probably might argue with me say, "Well, you got two HDMI 2.1s." I
yeah,
get that, and so that also plays a lot into why I'm not upgrading. It's because I really have an inkling that they're going to do something next year where they're going to fix. I don't have to select whatever their pre-selects are, and the Sony HDMI external inputs, and then also too, I feel like they're going to have all four HDMI 2.1, so I don't have to figure out which one that I need to use for console. I mean, granted, I have a receiver that have HDMI 2.1, so I'm kind of like good in that area, but if you have another person who doesn't have like a home theater system or a receiver, and they have more than multiple products that have HDMI 2.1 capability and they really need to use it, those are kind of like the things that's saying like, Sony, you charging so much money and I have to go through these stupid settings to toggle between if I want to watch Dolby Vision or I want to do the 4K 120 VRR. And it's kind of like, those are kind of like the things that's like, I get frustrated over. And those are kind of like the things that I'm knocking Sony off of that. So, oh,
yeah.
you got the super chat. You got to
Oh,
address that.
thank you for the alert there. Appreciate that, Eric. Um, says thank you, Eric Roberts, for the super chat here. He says, thanks for all your reviews and comparison videos. After watching a week of fake reviews by blank, I don't even know who that is, but I appreciate the content creators that don't manipulate the TV settings to fit their narrative. Hey, Eric, I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate the love, man. And I'm not sure who you're talking about, but there's a lot of blanks in there, so I appreciate you blanking out the name for whoever that is. Yeah, I don't want to say anything negative towards any creators or anything, but there's definitely I appreciate like all the love that people give to me for the work that goes into this. It's a lot, man. Taking into consideration all the TVs that we've done this year, um, it's more than I've ever done. And I say we because like I have kind of a team helping me, and I appreciate everybody that does help me. But man, like it is, it's a lot, and I think that I want to do it smarter next year because I feel like I overstepped a little bit, man. I had like 5 or 6 TVs at one point in the room, and I was like really overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was doing. And
Yeah,
a
you
lot
had a
of
lot
like
of
a lot of
TVs back
times,
then.
yeah, a lot of times with like so many things happen like that, like you start to like second guess things, like you get a little bit of imposter syndrome creeping in, and like that's just normal, like right, like that's the thing that people don't understand about doing YouTube. We were talking about this earlier, Max. I have like
Mhm.
3 hours of footage on every single TV, and I have maybe like 10 hard drives, each one of them for a different TV. And you're talking like you had just recorded the X95K next to the Bravia, and you have 3 hours of footage on that, and your
Oh,
video is a fraction of
it's
that. So it's like
yeah.
a lot of work for sure. So I appreciate the love.
Oh, and I do want to say too. I know a lot of people are asking like why I didn't do this or why I didn't do that. I, so this is where when you're a content creator, I really have to pick because I'm telling you, I have like so many hours of footages on the Bravia 9 against the X95K. It's crazy. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to make sure I'm taking like the most value. I think hopefully you guys like to see is one is that what does it look like with the default settings if I reset everything? If you get this out of the box, how am I supposed to look at this TV? That's why I thought it was really important. Second, also showing the differences when it comes to the HDMI, because to me, I always be blasting Sony for this because I get really frustrated if I have to go to the external input in the settings and toggle between the enhanced version to the enhanced VRR and so forth. Those are the things that I think is very important that I think not a lot of consumers know about it until they actually get the TV and don't think about it until they have it in their house and they're really going through those scenarios. And then I think the third thing too for me is that stacking the TV against something that they probably currently own 2 years ago. I think those are kind of like very, very important to me because I know some people like to upgrade their TVs every year, and so that's kind of like their preference. But for me, some people are just trying to figure out is it really worth doing that, and those are kind of like the things I think is very important for people who do watch my videos to try to give just a realistic expectation as in what they would get when they get the TV. So that's kind of like just me and stuff. So
Yeah.
everybody's different.
No,
So
and I think that's like a really great point. And that's why kind of we branch out of what we usually do in our videos in these live streams. Like we can go in depth and talk about like specs and like go deep into content and topics like tone mapping and stuff. And it's okay to do it on this live stream, but if I get into that in a video, so many people are gonna be like, "What the heck is this guy talking about right now?" So, like, for you to have like the the wherewithal and like the know you know what topics are gonna resonate with people more, like what's gonna help people more, and what's gonna go over the other people's heads and not help them and just confuse them. I think that's
yeah.
such an important skill to have when you're making a review because you gotta not like you don't want to dumb it down at all, but you don't want to like make it too technical to where it's like you're gonna just confuse everybody.
And that's where I think and like every content creator is like they have their own niche on especially TV
Yeah.
reviews, and I think everyone does a really great job, especially you, FOMO, Brian, HGTV. I mean, it's so many people that do really good jobs, and but the thing is that, and this is where I'm being 100% transparent. It's very challenging to put all that content into a very short time frame.
Yeah.
So a lot of the comments that people say, "Why you didn't do this?" and "Why you didn't do that," we have thought about that, but then it comes down to what is considered as the best priority for that specific video at the time that we're making and editing it. And those are kind of like the things I kind of want to kind of stress to other people as well too,
Yeah.
because like I guarantee that KG thought about some of his
Oh,
comparison
for
videos. Said,
sure.
"Oh, I wish I would have did this. I wish I would
Yeah.
have added this." But with hours long content and you editing it, it's kind of like I have to sacrifice this because I have to meet, because the average viewer only looks at a video maybe a couple minutes, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. But if you have a video that's 30 minutes, an hour long, oh, they're gonna flick out of that and look at something else and stuff, because people consumption and stuff like that is very very small compared to what it used to be and stuff. So I just want to keep that people, let people know about that and stuff. So
Okay. Yeah, no doubt. Like, it's a really good point. And it's definitely tough to gauge like what to talk about. Cause like motion, I don't talk about motion. Like I really don't talk about motion, and because I think it's subjective. I think it's more subjective than anything that I talk about. Because it's first of all, it's really hard to show motion. Like it's really hard to show motion on a video. And I could do a bunch of motion tests, but to show it on video, it's a little bit difficult. And everybody has
oh yeah.
different preferences to what they like in their motion. So I don't really talk about motion that much.
Yeah, it's very hard to do because the thing is that it depends on the camera that you're using too, the settings that you're using on your camera, and then it's very challenging to show that. And then unless you have graphs, and I think HGTV tests and other, I'm drawing a blank right now, so please forgive me. There's some other channels as well that do a very very good job. But at the end of the day, too, each person interprets motion differently when they look at it. I may be sensitive to motion more than the next person, and the other person say, "I don't know what you're seeing, but I don't see the same thing." And so that's kind of like, to your point. I do agree that it's very subjective depending on who's watching the content and what type of content you're watching.
Yeah. No, it's definitely true. It's a lot. And so we're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna hit one more question. I did want to talk about this question here because it's kind of like a will they do this kind of thing.
Hmm.
Is Samsung coming out with a new chip to compete with the Sony XR next year? I think that's what like everybody's biggest hope for is like they think that like they need to get a new chip to compete, right? I could tell you this right now. The 8K, man, that TV was crisp, clean, clear, like I don't know, all the words, sharp. It was good. Like that the QN990 looked good, and I don't know if it was because it's upscaling it to 8K or if it has a better processor. But man, that TV was good in terms of just how clear it looked, the depth it created, sharpness. It was nice. So if I can get that feeling out of their TVs next year, like with the OLEDs in mind, I would like that a lot. I don't think that their processing is bad at all. Like we talked about earlier, I just think that Sony's doing a little bit better job with certain things. And so is LG now. So there's some things that I would like to see Samsung do, whether or not it fits them or, will appeal to what they want to do. I would imagine they will have some sort of implementation with their processing, right? I don't know if it's going to be groundbreaking, like to compete with the XR or anything like that, but maybe. I think it's certainly not out the realm of possibility with LG just doing the A11 and Sony still has the XR. Like I don't think Sony's gonna go higher than XR next year yet, but
I wish that would
yeah,
be that would be good, but
I just don't think it's in there. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's in their roadmap. It feels like they're gonna stick with XR for a bit.
yeah.
Like I just get that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, going back on Samsung, that's kind of like another thing I really do hope that they would do for next year, because I think their processing is good. But one thing, and this is where I'm gonna have to pick up the S95D, but I could talk about the S95C. I felt like compared to Sony, I felt like, especially when it comes to depth wise, I felt like Sony did a way better job, and that's because of the processing wise, and that's why I'm hoping that Samsung will do with their next chip. And then also, I don't understand why Samsung is not using their top of the line
So
chip compared to like the QN 900 D and stuff like that, because it's kind of like they're still treating the QD OLED like the, no offense to stepchildren, but like a stepchild. So I don't know why. So
man, these are stepchildren alone. No, I'm just playing.
yeah. No offense, but
No,
that's
I
like
know.
one of those things I kind of like think about. It's like I don't know why Samsung does
Right.
that
It's
and
funny
stuff.
because you
So
hit that. You did the same analogy last time. So
I
that's
did.
funny.
I want to use something else. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
funny. No,
Wounded animal. I don't know.
it's good though, man. I think anytime there's a new processor, it's great. When LG did it, I was happy, and so yeah, hopefully we'll see more going forward. All right, we gotta wrap it up. So thank you guys so much for watching. Max, go check out his channel. You want to say anything before you go, Max, about the video you just did
Yeah.
and upcoming content?
Yeah, if you please take a look at the latest video, X95K and the Bravia 9. I still have the TV, can't really see it because I'm using my camera on my laptop right now. But take a look at that. Next content, I'm going to go over gaming. I think that's going to be very important for my next video. And I know like the latest game that a lot of people are talking about is Black Myth Wukong. It's a really good game. It's a really fun game. It does have a lot of technical issues, but the thing is with the Bravia 9 with SDR, I think it's going to be an interesting content to kind of like talk about that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be in the next video, and then I'm going to do a review, kind of like wrap this TV up and in future videos and stuff. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, no, that
Then what?
definitely. I just want to say, go check out Max. Go subscribe to his channel if you guys haven't already. We'll be doing live streams on his channel as well, in the future. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a live stream with both of us, the next time. And then I don't know, maybe you're gonna do some solo live streams eventually. We'll see. It might
No,
might might do
actually,
like
no.
a live
I want to
comparison or
get.
something. That'd be kind of
I
cool.
I'm still thinking about it and stuff. I
Yeah.
want to see how this goes. I'm going to try to use OBS and stuff. Try to get into that whole realm and do some live streams. But I want to do. I like what we're doing right now. I want to see if Brian or FOMO would like to stop in.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
going
for
to do
sure.
something a little bit
Always.
different than what we kind of like currently do with our streams. And I'm jotting down some ideas, and I'm going to bounce it off of you to see what you think later. So I'm going to keep that on the wraps for now. But I want
For
to
sure.
kind of make it a little bit different than what we currently have in our live stream, and hopefully make it a little bit more entertaining and stuff. So
Yeah.
who knows? Stay tuned for that. So, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sometimes we are definitely not entertaining. I'll be like I'll be watching our live stream like, dang, man, we are just like
Yeah.
we are not hitting on these topics. So yeah, but I think people like us because we're boring. Like sometimes, so
Yeah, I'm
we're just
looking at
nerding
some of these
out.
YouTubers.
We're
Yeah,
just
I'm talking
nerding
about
out.
like on Twitch and stuff,
Yeah,
and
we got to get
we
people
gotta step our
engaged.
game up.
We got to start getting more engagement.
Yeah,
No, I'm
yeah.
just joking,
No,
but. I know what you mean by that. Like we definitely need more like structure. Like we're just kind of freestyling right now, and you want to bring
mhm.
like a script to it, probably something
We'll
like
see.
that. We'll see.
I'm
You'll see.
still keeping raps.
Max is
I'm gonna
cooking
bounce some
something up.
ideas off of you.
Max is cooking something up.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's in the background. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, everyone will like it and stuff. So,
Yeah. Go subscribe to his channel. Go watch his video. X95K versus Bravia 9. It's gonna help a lot of people out, I think. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
all right. Take care.